All right, I think we're good. All right, so we are on the residence part 7. Today we're going to look at a few different topics that we're going to cover. We're going to look at duplicating views, which everyone should have a good actually grasp on this at this point, but we'll go over a few of those things. We're also going to look at view templates, and we're going to take another look at visibility graphics, okay? And then last class we talked about reference planes, and we also talked about beam systems, okay? I'm going to go over each of those, but I'm actually going to go by the kind of the step-by-step process to get what we're looking for in the residence. So you could technically follow along while I'm doing this and knock out part of the residence because I'm going to do it step by step, okay? Then we're going to look at creating roofs. So finally, all of our critical thinking exercises will have roofs starting next week. Yay, I know you guys are very excited for that. We're also going to look at some of the a few other components of creating roofs. We'll look at flat roofs. We'll look at how to create sloped roofs or gabled roofs, and a few other more advanced roof types. Lastly, we'll look at roof soffits, roof fascia, roof gutters. All very pretty simple, pretty self-explanatory stuff. And then lastly, we're going to create a generic model of an actual roof system, okay? So Revit does a good job with creating very kind of two-dimensional roofs, but let's say you want something that has a little bit more depth. Maybe you want to put like a standing seam metal roof. A lot of you guys have probably, let's just for example, I'll show you an actual image of the kind of roof that I want to create. Standing seam metal roof. Of course, maybe I won't show that. Sorry, I don't have my... I'll show you this in just a sec. But my point is when you create the standing seam metal roof or some type of a metal roof in Revit, it's still very much a flat picture, okay? Even if you add some kind of a texture map on the top, and you look at it in 3D, yes, you'll see the vertical lines of the metal roof, and it will look like a metal roof, but there's not going to be that three-dimensional aspect of it. I mean, ideally, if you're doing like a rendering or something like that, a lot of those subtle differences, like seeing that little shadow line behind the standing seam, makes a difference. It, adds depth and detail that adds to the realism of your rendering. If you don't know what a standing seam metal roof is, basically you have these, it's basically a 1 foot wide metal pan that goes like this, and those could be 8, 10, 15, 20 feet long, okay? That makes up the metal roof. Now when they add the next panel, it's basically a locking system that does that, okay? And then the next one would do the same thing and continue on, so on and so forth, all right? So that's just kind of what that is. All right, now that we're connected here, standing seam, metal roof. Just kind of show you what this looks like in real life. We do them quite a bit at my office. Very durable. They have a nice look. You guys have probably seen them. So that's going to be your standing seam metal roof. You can see though that metal roof, that actual standing seam is like 1.5 inches, 2 inches tall. So, you can actually see here in this image that there is a little bit of a shadow along the side of that standing seam. So, adding that extra detail to your rooftop, just gives a little bit added dimension to your final rendering that we'll do here in a couple weeks. So, just kind of a reminder of where we are with our residence project. Today is part 7. I believe next class might actually be, I think I actually created this little calendar here. Let's see. Today is, what's today, the 18th? So today's part 7. Next class we're going to do actually part 8 and part 9, okay? So there's really no need to have 2 parts for them. They're both pretty simple parts, but for the most part we're about done with our residence, okay? Our last 2 parts we're just going to be adding additional details. We'll basically play interior designer for the last week of our project. So kind of the fun part of the residence project is doing the renderings, and we'll start to set up the interior scenes. We'll add furniture to our house. We'll kind of just spend a day adding all of the entourage and all the fluff. Okay, so and then on April 1st, we will wrap up the residence and we will submit it so that when we go into spring break, we're done with that and you can relax. You don't have any homework. And when we come back from spring break, we'll kick off strong and we'll start our final project, which we'll have about 5 weeks to work on. Okay, any questions about kind of the next 2 weeks or so? Yeah. We will be doing renderings. In next class, we will go over that, okay? In fact, you know what? Today I'll go over it really quickly today. I'll go over it just briefly. So I know some of you might be a little further along than others. If you're at the point where you want to start practicing the renderings, you can do so. Pretty easy to set up. I'll go through the creation of one of them today. All right, so first things first, let's go back to our assignment, and let's talk about these first couple items: duplicating views, view templates, and visibility graphics. Okay, let's go over back to Revit. All right, go away, black box. All right. As I mentioned, Revit's still a little weird on my computer, but we should be able to make it work just fine. All right, so let's say in the assignment, it's going to ask you to create a working view, okay? This is actually a nice little, this is something that you'll probably do forever and ever if you work in the trade, okay? The reason why you create a working view versus a view that you're going to put on your sheet is you kind of want a view that you can get a little messy with. You can throw a bunch of lines on there. You don't have to worry about it showing up on your sheet, but then you also have a view that's just a duplicate of it that's going to actually be the finished product that's on your sheet, okay, where all of that additional line work won't be on, okay? But you know, as you're throwing up reference planes and reference lines, you know, sometimes those views can get a little messy. So a lot of times at the beginning of a project, I'll just duplicate that view and call it like level 3 working view, okay? So I can go and use that working view as my view that I'd make all of my edits to whereas the actual level 3 view, this one right here, would be the one that's on my sheet, okay? It's the nice clean version. It's the version that doesn't have all of the miscellaneous details that we don't necessarily want people to see once we go through the process of plotting it, okay? So I know several of you I'm sure you've duplicated views in the past, but just to go over it one more time, let's say I want to duplicate, let's look at my level 2 floor plan. All right, so when I right click on the level 2 and you go over to duplicate view, you'll have a couple different options, okay? Duplicate will simply duplicate the view, but if you have any line work on it, maybe you've also added additional details to it, additional annotative lines to your view. If you just simply click on duplicate, it won't give you any of that extra stuff. It's just going to duplicate just the actual physical elements inside of your model, okay? Whereas if you click on duplicate with detailing, you will get all of that. It'll give you an exact screenshot of what you see in the original view. So you'll get all of the additional detail lines and other items that maybe you have added. Maybe you've added some filled regions. If you go up to annotate, these are going to be all of the different things that you might have added to that sheet. So for example, let's just add some text here. Test. All right, and let's see how this works, okay? So if I go over to my level 2, right, there's actually not too many annotations on my view right here. It's a pretty clean view as it actually stands. But if I go over and I right click and I go to duplicate view, I go to duplicate, notice my new view does not have the word test on it, okay? Because it's just simply the architecture, the actual just physical elements in the view. Okay, now let me delete this view. I don't need it anymore. Now if I right click on this and I go to duplicate view and I go to duplicate with detailing, I'm going to have that word test on there. Okay, I'm going to have all of the other detail lines, annotations, text, all of those things that were originally on the view will come with it. Okay, so you have to ask yourself the question, do I need all of that extra stuff? Maybe you do, maybe you don't, okay? And now the last option was duplicate as a dependent. what that's going to do is going to duplicate it with all of the annotations. And if you make any changes to either of the views, it will do the same thing in the other view. So they are dependent of each other. Okay, do you see how that works? So any changes you might make in level one copy one will also be made in level, the original view that you created. Okay. So again, you have to ask yourself, do you want these to be dependent of each other? Or do you want these to be the same view, but maybe they're showing different things? Maybe you have different annotations on each of the views that you want to show. All right, so let's delete this, as we don't need that anymore. Any questions on duplicating views? Yeah? You're saying it won't change annotations, but it will keep the major changes when it transfers? Yes, so all of the actual... Yes, so no matter how you duplicate the view, if you change the architecture, you change the physical elements inside your model, yes, it will change that in all of the views, okay? All the views are all those kind of changes are always global in all of your views. Yeah, yeah, go ahead and use one of the ones in the back, that's fine. Let's get rid of this. And let's talk about creating view templates. So I know a lot of you guys have probably, as you're creating views, you realize that there are aspects of that view that you don't necessarily want to plot. Okay, so you might go through the process of going to your visibility graphics and you make some changes to that view. Okay, so for example, let's find... let's just continue to use this this floor plan for an example. So let's just say that I don't want to show my elevation tags. Okay, right now you can see that we have 4 elevation tags around the model, but maybe for what's on your sheet, for whatever reason you don't want to show those. Okay, so I'm going to go to my visibility graphics, and I'm going to go to annotation categories. And I'm going to go over to elevations. Okay, so A, B, C, D, E, F, we're almost there. Elevations, I'm going to click on that little box, elevations, I'm going to hit OK. And now those are gone. Okay, so they're not gone from the model, I'm just turning them off in my visibility graphics. Okay, if you ever need to, you could click on any physical item in your model and you could right click on it and you can go to hide in view and it's just hidden. But if you want to permanently hide it and you don't want it to start hiding, dozens of things in your model, the better approach to take is to go into your visibility graphics, find that item in your visibility graphics, and simply turn it off. Okay, so it's still in your model, it's just hidden in the visibility graphics. So an option that we have to move forward with is we have something called view templates. Okay. And the reason why you create view templates is because you don't want to go through, if seeing those elevation tags and maybe several other elements inside your view, instead of going through and hiding those every single time you create a new elevation or a new floor plan, instead of going through that process of going into your visibility graphics and unchecking all those every single time, you can create a template. All right, so you create... you duplicate that floor plan that has all of the things on there that you don't necessarily want to show. Well, you can create a template for a standard elevation template. Okay, so you can go through and uncheck all the things that you don't want to see, create the template. So as soon as you duplicate that elevation, you just simply go and select the template, and all of those things will be hidden. Okay, you'll use these more in a professional environment if you're actually in an office, to where you might have office standards. Okay, you have office standards on how your elevations look, how your floor plans look. You might have office standards for what you want your line weights to be on your cut walls, or what you want the opacity of. So for example, you might have a view standard on how the right now, all of these wood flooring, those are all just standard black lines. But maybe your office standard is that you want those hatch patterns to be, soft and gray, okay? Well, I can go over to my visibility graphics, And let's go to annotation category, or is it, let's see. I'm going to go to hatch patterns. Oh, that's going to be H, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. Actually, it might be model categories. Let's see. Oh, yeah, good point. So I'm actually going to go to floors. Let's try that. Floors first. And I'm going to go over to projection surface. I'm going to go to override patterns. All right. And remember this little dialog box that we got earlier in the semester when you clicked on any object in the actual physical model? Well, you can right click on that. You can click on override graphics. Well, you can override the graphics in that view as we talked about a couple weeks ago. But if you want this to be something that consistently happens in all of your elevations or in all of your floor plans, you can go to your visibility graphics and make that change, okay? So for example, let's say I want all of my floor patterns to, I want them to be gray instead of black. So they're a little softer. They're not so in your face, okay? You don't want the hatch patterns to be so bold that they become distracting, okay? So I'm going to go to my pattern. I'm going to choose the, let's see, I'm going to choose the pattern that I want, which is going to be, let's see, let's click over here. And let's say I want my floor pattern to be wood. And actually, what I want is actually a model line. Transparency. Actually, I got a better idea. Instead of doing the pattern, I'm going to actually change the lines, okay? So floors, override, and I'm going to change the weight to 1. I'm going to change the pattern to just a solid line, and I'm going to change the color to a nice kind of soft gray, okay? So now I hit OK, I hit OK again, and I'm going to hit OK again. So you can't really see it here on the projector, but my line pattern did get a little bit softer. Maybe we want it to be a little bit softer than what we're showing. Let's try this one more time. Let's go to floors. I'm trying to create it so that you guys can actually see the difference on the floors. So floors, line override. Let's make this really soft. Let's make this almost white. Obviously, if we made it white, you wouldn't be able to see it. It would just look the same as the rest of the floor. Let's go ahead and hit OK. And hit OK. I'm also going to go over, I'm going to check the halftone button. That will just automatically make it half as dark as what it originally was. I'm going to hit OK. Okay, there you go. Now you can barely see it on my screen, but actually on my laptop, it actually looks the way that I want to see it. It's just a nice soft gray line. It's not overly distracting, but it's just enough that I can tell that there's a wood pattern on that floor. Okay, so now we've made some of these changes. Oh, I see what I did. So now, if you notice this line right here is actually gray. So let's change. I'm going to leave the halftone checked. The halftone will make it light enough that, which is what I want to see. But when I change that line to a light gray, it actually changed the boundary line, which is not what I want. So let's click on this again. I'm just going to leave this the way that it was. I'm going to click on clear overrides. So that's good. That's what I want. But by clicking on halftone, that made the hatch pattern half as dark as what it originally was. Okay? So let's go ahead. Nope. So I actually went to, you could, so if I was in my model, yes, I could click on the floor. I could right click on it and I could go to override graphics in view by element, and you could click on this. You could do the same exact thing. I can go to projection lines and I could make that projected perimeter line whatever color I want, okay? But what we ended up doing was in the visibility graphics, we just made that pattern halftone. And I did the same thing for the concrete pattern of my walkway, okay? So we've done two things here. We've made the surface pattern half as dark, and we've also hidden our elevation tags, okay? So let's say I want to make this a consistent element for all of my floor plans, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to Manage, View, and I'm going to go click on View Templates, and I'm going to click on Create Template from Current View. So when I click on that button, what it's doing is it's saving all of the properties from the view that I'm currently working on, and it's going to save that as a template, okay? So let's call this floor plan template, okay? I'm going to hit OK. All right, so there it is. It's going to be in my template, floor plan template. It's going to save every little detail about my floor plan. So it has the scale, it has everything. All right, so if I go hit OK, now let's go and apply this same exact template to my level 1. All right, so you can see here that I have my elevation tags. I actually don't have hardwood floors on my level 1, but let's go over to View Template. Scroll down. Okay, so see over here in your Properties dialog, you have this little button that says View Template. Right now, there's no View Template associated with this floor plan. All right, so I'm going to click on View Template, and I'm going to click on Floor Plan Template. I'm going to hit OK. And what that's going to do is it's going to match all of the properties from my previous from the previous level that we just worked with. Okay, so notice that my elevation tags are gone. Actually, I do have wood floors on the bottom, and I also have the nice halftone graphics. Okay, it becomes much more effective when you've done a lot of things to it. But it's nice if you keep these elements and you start to create multiple floor plans. All you got to do is just select that template that you created, and you won't have to go through and hide all of those elements and go through that whole process every single time. Okay? Any questions about view templates? That makes sense? So the goal is to save time. This is just an efficiency exercise. It's to save time from going through and hiding things and doing all the things that you might typically do to make the view presentation ready. Okay? So by simply just creating a view template, that saves all of the settings from the view that you created and allows you to just duplicate those settings on other similar views, okay? So at the end of the day, you might have, or at the end of a project, you might have a floor plan template. You might have an elevation template, a section template. You would technically have a template for every view type that you create, okay? We won't get that far in this class because we're not going to create like detailed views and, so we're not going to draw all of a lot of the things that you might draw if you're doing construction documents, but hopefully that it makes a little bit more sense to why you would use a view template versus just simply overriding the graphics on every single view. It's an efficiency thing, all right? Any questions on view templates? Good? All right, so moving on, let's look at our next. We just talked about duplicating views, we talked about view templates, and we talked about visibility graphics. Let's just look at a couple more things in our visibility graphics that are just general good to knows. All right, so we click on visibility graphics. We've looked at model categories, and we've also looked at annotation categories. Now, if you notice that all of these items here are gray. Can maybe anyone guess why all of those items are currently gray? Nope. The reason why they're all gray is because we currently have a view template associated with this floor plan, okay? So if I want to make changes to this floor plan, I either need to go back and change my view template to none, or I need to go and manipulate the actual template, okay? So I can't make any of these changes because I already have a template associated with this floor plan, okay? So let's see, I'm gonna go up to, instead of going over to visibility graphics, I'm going to go to view templates, and I'm going to go to manage view templates. And if I go over to my floor plan template that I just created, I can go through and I can actually start to manipulate other things should I want to do that. For now, I'm actually going to go back and I'm just going to go to none just for a few minutes. so that I can show you some of these other elements within our visibility graphics. Notice that it still actually kept all of the it still keeps all of the properties from the view template. Okay, so when if you do go back to none, it won't revert itself back to what we originally had. It will continue to keep it. All right, so let's go up to visibility graphics one more time. Let's look at some of our other categories. So there we manipulated some of the projection surface lines. You can manipulate cut patterns. Halftone, it's a very important column. So if you're simply trying to make something lighter, maybe you're looking at it, something in elevation, and you want to select some walls that are maybe like further back in your elevation. Well, if you're familiar with architectural graphics, usually the walls that are further back are halftone. So it's apparent that they're not in your immediate field of view, and they're actually set further back, and they're not a part of the main wall that you're looking at. Okay. Well, we have a couple other different types of categories. These are going to be all of your annotations. All right. So if you scroll through here, all of your elevation tags or section tags, most of these kind of pertain to doing like construction documents. So we won't really go too much into a lot of those. But if you go, the important category that I want to look at is imported categories. Okay. So this is where you're going to find, for example, CAD files that you might bring into your Revit file. Maybe you're going to bring in a CAD file and you want to use it as like an underlay or something like that. Maybe you're going to trace it so that you can start to turn a flat 2D CAD file into a 3D Revit model. You're going to find all of your imported categories. Maybe you import like SketchUp models or something. Maybe you bring some 3D SketchUp furniture into your residence. Well, if you want to manipulate how those look, you can go over and click on imported categories, and you'll see all of the imported items that you've brought into your file located here. Okay? Questions about that? You can literally, every little piece, every little graphic item that you can imagine in this model can be manipulated in some fashion by going over to your visibility graphics. Sometimes the hardest part is finding it in the visibility graphics, because you have to know what category it is. You have to go, if you're looking to edit your floors, you have to go find the floor and go through and find the exact category that you're looking for. So that's usually the hardest part of manipulating the graphics, is just finding what family the thing that you're trying to override is associated with. Okay? So any questions about visibility graphics? Good? All right, let's move on. Let's cancel this. And let's look at a review of reference planes, all right? If we scroll down in our exercise, the first thing that it's going to ask you to do, it's going to tell you to duplicate your north elevation, which I have a feeling that it's going to be actually your south elevation. I think this is actually backwards, but we'll find out here in just a sec. So if you duplicate your north elevation and you find that it's not the right elevation, that could be south, but we'll find out in just a second. So we're going to duplicate the view, all right? We're going to rename it North Working. We talked about that. And we have the view template. We talked about that. You're going to change that to none if there's one already applied to it. If there's not a view template applied to it, you can skip this step and go right by it, all right? We're going to go to visibility graphics. It's just showing you how to make sure to turn on reference planes if you're not seeing them. We'll find that out in just a second. But you can see here in the example, what we're going to do is we're going to create two reference planes in our new working view to get the slope that we're looking for our roof, okay? And it tells you here that the reference plane is going to be at an angle of 3.58 degrees. It's not really, if you want to do 3.5 degrees, that's fine. You're not going to notice a difference in the models, but
that's not degree. That is the height from degree.
Yep, 3.58 degrees, and then you're going to create another reference plane that's 10 inches above that. What we're doing is we're creating the reference planes for our two different beam systems that we're going to create. Okay, we're going to create one beam system that's going to be a lower system, which is going to be all of our horizontals, and then we're going to create another beam system that sits on top of those That's going to be our vertical beams, okay? So let's go through that process on how we're going to create these different elements. All right, so we're going to go over to our, let's see what our north view is. Let's see if this is actually correct. Yeah, so it is backwards. So you're actually going to do your south view. I'll fix that on the assignment in just a second. So we're going to go to our south view. Oh wait, no. Oh, we're correct. North is correct. We're good. All right, so we're going to go to north. We're going to go ahead and right click. We're going to duplicate this like so. And we're going to rename this north working. So rename. Just regular duplication. Regular duplicating is fine. All right, so I'm going to call this north working. I'm going to hit OK. So you can already see, in my view I have here, I can already see the reference planes, so you're not going to need to turn them on. If you don't see them, though, you can go to your visibility graphics as it shows in the assignment prompt, and you can turn them on, okay? But I think the way that we've been working throughout the semester, you should be able to see them, okay? I'm going to delete this line right here. I actually don't need that. I created that last night as just an example for when I was doing my practice video recording. All right, so let's go ahead and add a new roof plane, or a new reference plane that we're going to use for our roof beam system. All right, so we're going to go over to architecture, and I'm going to go over to reference plane and save it. Yeah, why not? So I'm saving this, part 7, and let's go ahead and start by, I'm going to create a flat one first. So I'm going to start it right here at the top of my wall. All right, I'm going to create one reference plane that goes all the way through. Okay? I've created it right at my wall, at the top of my wall. So I'm going to click on that reference plane. Oops. I'm going to click on that reference plane, and I'm going to go, which I don't think I've done quite yet. Sorry, Revit's kind of slow on my computer. All right, so now that I've clicked on that reference plane, I'm going to go ahead and go to rotate, and it's going to rotate it from the center, and I'm going to rotate it up 3.58 degrees. So as soon as you start that rotation, I'm just going to type in 3.58, and I'm going to hit enter. Why did it not do that? Let's see. Oh, because I actually have the level head selected. So you're not going to be able to rotate the level head. But let's just make sure that we select our plane. Still have the level head selected. Remember, you can hit tab. Okay, there we go. So I have that plane selected now. So now let's go ahead and try rotating it. 3.58 degrees. Enter. And there's our reference plane. Okay, so now I know that this is 3.58 degrees from that level 3 line. Okay, I can click on the click to name. I'm going to call this, we'll just call this lower reference plane. I think in the assignment prompt it tells you something else. Let's call this, I'm going to call this lower roof plane. All right, if you want to double check that your the degree is correct, you can go over to annotate, and you can click on angular, and I can go and I can select both my reference plane and something else that I know is flat, like the top of that grid, and there it gives me the 3.58 that I'm looking for. So we know that's correct. Okay, so that's going to be our first roof plane that we need, or the first reference plane for our roof that we need. I'm going to select this again. Actually, let's go back to architecture. Let's go to reference plane. I'm going to use my pick lines tool, and I'm going to create another reference plane by just simply offsetting this 10 inches. Okay, so I clicked on pick lines, and I added the 10 inches to my offset. All right, so I'm going to go over. I'm going to hover my mouse over my original reference plane. Notice that you can't really see it on the screen, but there is actually a dashed blue line right above that shows me where that reference plane is going to be. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and as soon as I get it where I want it to be, I'm going to click. I'll have my second reference plane. I'm going to click on it. I'm going to give it a name. Let's call it upper roof plane. All right. So I have upper roof plane. So now I have a name for both of those reference planes. So when I'm creating my roof beam systems, I can go over to my reference plane and simply just select the plane that I created. Okay? So now that we got our two reference planes, let's go back to our prompt, not my Spotify. So we have our reference planes as shown. And now we're going to create the structural beam system. All right. So we have a couple new properties that you're going to have to match. You should already have the 2x10 lumber uploaded from the previous exercise, right? We should already have that. But if you don't, yeah, maybe you weren't here last class. You can go and you're going to have to click on beam and upload that beam or that 2x10 piece of lumber prior to starting the beam system. Okay, so what it's telling you is this: we're going to let's see. If you scroll down a little further, I think it tells you to offset the first beam system by 1 foot. All right, so we're going to go to our level 3 floor plan. Level 3 floor plan, we can see everything here. We're going to go to structure. We're going to go to beam system. And we're going to make sure that all of our constraints match what we have on the dial or on the assignment prompt. We're going to click on sketch beam system. Let's just make sure that all of our properties match. Okay, so the first one we're going to do maximum spacing. The maximum spacing is going to be 10 feet, and we want to make sure that our beam type is 2x10. All right, so layout rule, we're going to go to maximum spacing. The spacing is going to be 10 feet. And for our beam type, we are going to click on 2x10 lumber, which we uploaded last class. All right, and what the assignment prompt tells us to do is to offset the edge of our beam system 1 foot from the exterior of our exterior wall. The reason is because our roof is also going to overhang a foot beyond the exterior wall. Okay, we wouldn't align our roof with the edge of the wall. We would have a little bit of an overhang to protect that upper type or the upper part of our wall. Okay, so I'm going to click on my pick lines tool. I'm going to give that an offset of 1 foot. Hit enter, and from here, sorry, you're not going to be able to see the line. Oh, you actually can't really see much. Okay, so you can barely see my graphics. The reason why it's so light is because the level 3 floor plan is actually, or majority of the elements in my level 3 floor plan are actually below my cut plane, so it's showing it all as gray. Okay, so I'm going to highlight 1 foot all the way around all of my exterior walls. You should be able to see the pink line though, right? Yeah, we can. All right, so you should have an understanding. We all know this project well enough that you know what I'm clicking on. All right, so we're going to close the boundary. Make sure this is one consistent boundary all the way around. All right, that looks good. All right, and before we hit the check mark, we're going to go up to set. We're going to set our work plane, and we're going to select the name of the work plane that we just created. Okay, let's see here. Why aren't you there? We should have a work plane there. Oh, that's weird. Oh, pick a plane. That's weird. That's not what I want to see. Let's see here. I'm just going to leave this at level 3 for just a second. I will figure out why this is not working. All right, so we're going to want to make sure that our directions, remember we have this button that says beam direction, okay? I'm going to click on beam direction, and I'm going to draw a line from this side of the extents all the way to the other side. That's just showing me the direction that all of my beams are going to be. So remember, we created a 10-foot spacing. What it's going to do is it's going to create the first beam here, and then it's just going to offset one every 10 feet. And then our next beam system that we're going to create is going to be all of our verticals, which will be a much tighter spacing. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and hit check. And you can now see those different, you can see those beams running across. I'm going to go to my 3D here. Let's see what this looks like in 3D. So the only thing that we don't have currently is we don't have it on the work plane that we just created. So let's see why that's not working. Should be able to see that. Our work plane should be there. Let's go back and look at our north working. We have them here. Lower roof plane. Sorry, give me just a second. Let's look at our assignment prop. Did I miss a step real quick? I don't think so. I've already done that. We did this. Structural beam system. Okay. I think I see it. So let's go back to our level 3 plan. I think I know the problem here. So let's select, what we're going to do is we're going to select our beam system. And I think prior to hitting the check mark, you're actually going to select that reference plane over in your properties panel. So let's select the beam system. Sorry, my computer's runs Revit a little bit slow. All right, so we're going to select that beam system. So prior to hitting the check mark, we're going to go ahead and define the reference plane over here. Constraints, work plane. Oh, come on. No, that's weird. All right, I'm gonna have to come back to that. I'll let you know why that's not working in just a second. You should be able to select that plane that we just created. Were you able to find your plane though? Okay, so let's try this. We're gonna go. Let's do what he just said. We're gonna do pick a plane, and let's try to pick the reference plane that we just created. May have to go to our elevation so that we could see it. Okay, let's pick, so set work plane, pick a plane. God, it's so weird. I've never had this problem. So you're saying you were able to pick that plane? Okay. Well, instead of you guys watching me trying to figure this out, I'll figure this out in just a second to why that's not working. I'm just gonna hit check for now. But what the end result that we'll have here in a few minutes is that our beam system will take on the plane that we just created. Oh, it's so weird. All right, let's go back to our assignment prompt. So we're going to create two different beam systems. The other one is going to be on top of that. All right, so see, this is what you should be able to see. If you're looking at this little prompt right here, you should be able to scroll down and you should be able to click on that reference plane that we just created. So I'll figure that out in just a second. So we're going to do one more beam system, but instead of having the 10-foot spacing, we're going to have, I think it's 2-foot spacing. All right, so we're going to go ahead and do another one, and we're going to do 2-foot spacing. You're going to change the justification to end, and you're going to keep the lumber size at 2 by 10. All right, so let's go back to our level 3 floor plan. Okay, let's go back to our level 3 floor plan. We're going to do the exact same extents, but we're actually going to let I believe this is the northern end of the building, is going to actually extend out about 5 feet. Okay? So let's go back to our level 3 floor plan. And I'm going to go up to beam system. And I'm going to do sketch beam system. Ah, that's so funny. All right, so right here I'm going to click on upper roof plane. You know what? Before we do that, I think I know what the problem is. Let me actually just fix this, and we will, before we move on, I want you guys to be able to see what it is that we're looking at. For whatever reason, it worked that second time. I think you just have to do it as the first thing you do. All right, so let's try that. Let's do the first part one more time. So we're going to go to beam system. We're going to go to sketch beam system. Before we sketch that beam system, go to set your work plane. And okay, wow, that's so weird. All right, so we're going to click on reference plane, lower roof plane. That's the lower roof plane that we just selected. We're going to hit OK. We're going to go to pick lines. We're going to give that a 1-foot offset. All right, and we're going to offset this perimeter 1 foot around our exterior wall. Okay, there's 1, 2, 3. Whoa there. Okay, so we have all of our lines offsetted. Let's use our trim tool. We're going to trim all of our lines, make sure we have a nice enclosed boundary. And let's make sure all of we got maximum spacing, 10 feet. That looks good, 2 by 10 lumber, and we're going to go ahead and hit check. Oh, you know what we did not do? What did we not do? Yes, we did not do the beam direction. So we're going to go to beam direction, and we're going to draw that line from this side to this side. All right, now we will hit check, and there's our first set of beams. All right, let's go ahead and do our second one. We're going to go back to structure. We're going to do beam system again. Okay, it's saying that you can't use that because you've already used it once. So we're going to go to set work plane, and instead of the lower roof plane, we're now going to do the upper roof plane. Hit OK. And we're going to do the same thing, but instead of the maximum spacing being 10 feet, we're going to go ahead and make that 2 feet. All right, our lumber is set to 2 by 10, so that is good. And again, we are going to use our pick lines tool and go 1 foot around the perimeter of our building. All right, and instead of doing 1 foot for the front, we're going to make this 5 feet. Okay. The reason why we're doing that is because we're giving some nice emphasis to the top of that roof. Okay, you're giving yourself a nice roof overhang that would actually kind of cover our patio below. Okay, so I made the overhang 5 feet, and again I'm going to use my trim tool, and I'm going to make sure that we have a nice enclosed boundary. And one more. And we should be good. What's the last thing that we need to do? Yes, the beam directions. We're going to go to beam direction. We're going to draw a line instead. We're going to draw a line going this other way. Okay? Like so. We're going to hit check. And now we're going to see all of our beams with the 2-foot offset. Actually, the only thing I don't think we did was we wanted to make this, the justification, we want to make this end, which I think you actually need to do at the beginning as well, but you'll do that when you do yours. So let's go back to our 3D view. Let's take a look at what we got. Yay! There's going to be, there's all of our roof structure for the roof that we're going to create. Okay? We can all see that. We can all see that it's all sloped to match our reference planes that we just created. And now lastly, we can create a roof. Okay? So we're going to go over to back to our level 3 plan, and let's look at creating roofs. So we're going to go over to architecture, and we're going to go over to roof, and let's look at the different options that we have. We have roof by face, which after doing the exercise that we do today, you can probably imagine how you do that. By using the mass, you can simply select the upper part of the mass if you want to do a roof by face. You also have a roof by extrusion. So also, if you have, you can create kind of the nice thing about roof by extrusion is you can start to get some complex roof shapes. If you hover your mouse over roof by extrusion, you can see that all you're doing is you're creating a profile for the roof to which it will create that roof by extrusion. What we're going to use a majority of the time is you're going to use roof by footprint. Okay. So we're going to click on roof by footprint. I probably say I use this probably about 95% of the time. All right, so we're going to click on roof by footprint. It's telling you that the work plane that you're in is not acceptable. So we're going to go ahead and hit close. That's fine. And let's set our roof plane over to, let's go to, we're just going to go to level, let's just use level 3. The reason why we would actually select one of the planes that we created if we were doing a roof by extrusion, okay? So then it would do that extrusion by that plane. But I'm going to show you the proper way for doing it here, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and make level 3 my work plane. And just like we did before, we're going to go over to, oh, where'd it go? Roof, oops, sorry. Roof by footprint. This should be on level 3. Okay, good. So we're going to go ahead and create a new roof type. So we're going to go to Edit Type. We're going to go to Duplicate. And let's call this Metal Roof, which I believe is what they call it inside the exercise prompt. And we're going to go to Edit Type. And now instead of adding all of our structure right here, so typically like a floor, we might, if there's 6 inches of floor structure, we're going to put in 6 inches. But we've already created all of the roof structure using the beam systems. Okay, so we're just going to do, we're going to make our roof structure just our plywood. Okay, our plywood will be our roof structure in this particular instance. Okay, so let's call this plywood. Whoops. Yeah, I would. The best I got. So we're going to go to plywood, hit OK. Let's make this a 1/2 inch. And we're going to insert a new layer. Let's move this to the top. This is going to be our finish layer. Okay, and we're going to make this a material of your choice. If you don't want to do metal roofing, that's fine, but I'm going to use it for the demonstration. So let's add a material. I'm going to create a new material. Actually, it might be in here. Let's just see if metal roof is an option. If not, we'll have to create it. Yeah, it's not, of course. So we're going to go ahead and create a new material for our metal roof. So default, I'm going to go up to default, create new material. I'm going to right click on the new material, rename this. Let's call this metal roof. Up in appearance. Do our other, our good old trick that we like to use. Let's see, copper, precast. Here we go. All right. Let's go back to metal roof. All right, so here's all of our materials. Let's go to thumbnails, and I think it's going to be under thermal barriers. That's a guess. But let's go down to T. Actually, I think thermal barriers is just going to be external. Let's just try. This may take a second. Let's see. Thermal barrier, moisture. That's going to be our vertical siding. We're getting somewhere. So here's a shake roof if you want a shake roof. Oh, here we go. So thermal barrier roof. Oh no, that's Spanish blue tiles. Spanish blue tiles. Has anyone seen a blue Spanish tile?
Yeah.
You have?
Yeah, it's pretty rare.
All right. Take your word. Let's see. Metal ribbed copper. So we're pretty close. We're pretty close to what we want. I'm going to end up just picking one of these because I don't want to look for an hour, but let's just go with that. I'm just going to go with this one. Although that's the bump. We don't want the bump. Let's just click on siding. Oh, that's still siding. It's not going to look right. Sorry, I'm determined to find this metal roof material that's in here. Let's go to metal. Getting close. Masonry. Getting closer. Metals. Of course, I'm not gonna find it. All right, I'm just gonna pick one. Let's go back to my roofing. Just gonna pick this one, and this will work for now. We're actually gonna create something that's gonna go on top of this anyways, so we'll just go with that. Why not? We're gonna go blue roof. We're going blue. We're doing blue Spanish tiles. Hit OK. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit OK. That's going to be our metal roof. Let's give that a thickness of, I think it says 1.5 inches. And we're going to hit OK. All right, hit OK. And just like we did for our beam system, we're going to go ahead and match the offset that we did for the upper beam system. All right, so we're going to do 1 foot all the way around. So when you're creating your roof, it's very much just like creating a floor, okay? You're just going to define the outer boundary of where you want that roof to be. Okay, so if you're doing a building that has like a parapet, that roof would actually be on the, or that perimeter line that you're creating would actually be on the inside face of your exterior wall. In our case, our roof is actually overhanging the exterior of our wall, so we're going to offset it 1 foot. All right, we're going to offset the top by 5 feet. So that it matches our beam system. Okay. Let's trim all of our lines. Okay. So, all right, so we have all of our lines. We have one continuous perimeter. Now the important thing about when creating a roof is right now, if I was just to hit check, we're going to have a nice flat roof. Okay, but if you want to add slope to it, what you're going to do is you're going to click on the perimeter boundary line, for example, this one right here, that I want to define a particular slope, okay? I'm going to go up and I'm going to click on Defines Slope, all right? And notice that it came up and it said 30 degrees. So if I hit check right now, I'm going to have a roof that has a 30-degree slope. And the reason why I selected this line versus this line over here is because I'm selecting the line where I want the slope to start, okay? Which is going to be the bottom of our roof, okay? If I was to select this line over here on this side, then the slope will start from that side and the roof will shoot up, go in the wrong direction, okay? If I select both of those lines, it's going to create, it's going to start the slope on both sides and it's going to create a gable, okay? I'm probably actually going to talk about more complex roof shapes next class as we're kind of running a little bit short on time. But by the end of this class, you'll be able to make flat and sloped roofs. Okay, so we've defined the slope on this left line of our roof perimeter, and I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to change that slope to what? Yeah, 3.58. Bingo. To 3.58 degrees. Okay, so now that we've done that. Yeah, it's just teeny tiny. It's really small on my screen because that's the one bad thing about doing Revit on a Mac is because you have a Retina display. So some of the text is a little small and goofy, but it works. So now that we've defined our perimeter and we've also defined our slope, I can hit the check mark. Okay. Now it asks you this question: would you like to attach the highlighted walls to the roof? Okay. So by highlighted walls, if you can barely see in the screen, but it's showing all of the walls that are on the second floor. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and say yes to that. All right. And just go ahead and hit delete elements. That's fine. And now if we look at this in 3D, we have our blue roof. Okay. It's obviously an ugly roof, but we'll fix that in just a second because we're gonna make a much nicer one. All right. So let's see here. I think we have a couple things that aren't quite right. Let's look at this in elevation. A little further down, north working. Let's look at how we have some of this. Okay, so I know the problem here. Let's go back. I want to actually hit no before I'm going to attach these myself. Okay, so really quickly, I'm going to click on my roof that I just created. I'm going to move it down and put it on top of the beam. Okay, I'm just going to make sure that I'm moving this perpendicular right there. Okay, now if we look at this right now, the way that we have this, you're going to notice that there's a little bit of a gap between this. Can anyone guess why maybe that's there? Anybody? Okay, so the reason why that's there is when we originally made that offset from our the offset between the two reference planes, we offset it 10 inches, right? We offset it 10 inches. Well, these beams are 2 by 10. Now, if you've worked in construction, you know that a 2 by 10 is not actually 2 inches by 10 inches. It's actually 1.5 by 9.5 inches. So that's actually why you're seeing that little bit of a gap there. So if the assignment was a little bit more precise, and maybe you guys can do this when you're doing yours, offset that top line 9.5 inches versus 10 inches, and they'll be on top of each other, okay? So I'm not going to worry about that right now. I'll fix it in a little bit, but that is the reason why that's there. Don't spend a ton of time trying to figure that out. Okay, so I'm going to now, let's see, in 3D, let me go back to my 3D. So instead of hitting yes to do you want to connect your walls to the roof, I'm going to select the walls myself. So I'm going to select my wall right here, for example. Come on. It's trying to select that reference point. Okay, so I'm going to select the wall, and I'm going to go to Attach Top to Base, and I'm going to select my roof. Okay, so I'm going to select my roof, and notice that that wall goes up and attaches to the roof. The reason why I want to do it this way versus the way that versus hitting yes on the question when it asks you if you want to attach the roof, because I actually don't want all of the walls to attach to the roof. I don't want my curtain wall to attach to that roof. Okay, so I'm just going to manually attach these by selecting them and hitting Attach Top to Base, and then selecting my roof. Okay, I'll go through when we come back from lunch, and I'll just fix some of these little gaps here, or I'll show you how to do that. All right, so we can select our other walls here. That's interesting. Sorry, never. That's interesting. Maybe I need to activate my windows. Okay, so let's see. Let's go in last couple more steps. We'll go to lunch in about 15 minutes. We have one more thing to show you. So I'm going to select these remaining walls. Again, attach top to base. I'm going to attach it to the roof, like so. Trying to select, I don't know what the right button is on my Mac to select multiple items. All right, so attach top to base. Select the wall, attach top to base. Select our roof. One more wall. Select our last wall, attach top to base, attach it to our roof. Okay, so now all of our exterior perimeter walls should be attached to our roof. We have a couple more items that I need to do to kind of clean this up. I need to fix this here, for example, but I'll go back and do that later. So I want to do one more thing before we go, is when we're going to create our own roof profile to create the standing seam metal roof that I actually want to see, okay? So, as we did last class, we're going to go over to Component, and we're going to click on Model in Place, okay? So I'm going to scroll down. I'm just going to select Generic Model. Right here, we're going to click on Generic Model, and we're going to hit OK. And we're going to call this Standing Seam Metal Roof. And I'm going to hit OK. All right. And I'm going to start by clicking on Extrusion, and I'm going to set my work plane to my roof. To do that, I'm going to click on Pick Plane, hit OK, and I'm going to hover my mouse over my roof, and I'm going to click on that. So that's going to be the roof plane that we're going to work with for creating this roof. Okay. So now that I've done that, I'm going to use my line tool here, and actually I'm going to use my pick line tool here, and I'm going to select the edge of my roof as my starting point. Okay, notice that pink line, so that's going to be the start of my roof. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a profile. Okay, so I'm going to draw a profile that looks a little something like this. And this is kind of a fine little detail that you may not be able to see on the screen. So what that profile is going to look like is like this. I just drew my bottom line, and I'm just going to draw the standing seam metal roof profile. Okay? So just for those of you who aren't familiar with some of these construction items, basically each of these metal pans is 1 foot. Okay? And they come in 18 inches, they come in 2 feet, you can kind of get them whatever you want. Okay? But we're going to draw that profile that we want to use. Okay? So we've already drawn our first line, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my line tool, and I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to draw the first part of my seam, which is going to be, I'm going to make it 2 inches tall. All right, let's do this. So right now, if you look at the screen, you notice that this line is really big, and it's really kind of hard to, eventually it's going to be really hard to, see all those tiny little details, okay? If you go up to your upper ribbon, you have this little button right here that says Thin Lines, okay? If you click on that line, what it's going to do is going to make all of your line work in your screen really thin, okay? You're not going to be able to see, actually I can even barely see it on my display, but you can barely see it. It's right there, but you can see that line that we've created, okay? So I'm going to finish this profile. All right, so I'm just kind of making this up. And I'm going to go over a foot, which is over here. Yeah, you're not going to be able to see this. You know what? I will show you this when we come back from lunch, but I'm going to end up showing you the final product because you're just not going to be able to see this on the screen, okay? So for now, just go ahead and pick the material for your roof as whatever it is that you want, okay? There is a metal panel in there. You can get the look that you're looking for, and I may actually scratch this because you may not be able to see this on your screen. But for now, let's just proceed with just adding the metal panel texture at the top of the roof, okay? And if you want to add a more three-dimensional metal panel, I'll show you how to do that. Unfortunately, you're just not going to be able to see it on this screen right here. What I may do is I may actually do this on the actual computer right here because you will be able to see it with that. It's not that. It's the Retina display on my laptop. It's just such a fine line that you can't see it. So I'll do it again when we come back. I'll just do it on this computer, and I promise you'll be able to see it. Okay. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete this for now. I will come back and we will look at this when we get back. All right. Any questions? Any questions before we go to lunch? All right. So I'm going to end the recording there. Hopefully that helps you guys.